Libra, welcome to your September 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here. I just had a very unusual experience. When I'm compiling the transits for a month, I'm really not putting together some kind of a picture. I'm just taking each one as it comes. And I got this feeling, this vibe for you guys that something is going to be really transformative. Now, September is a time when the sun goes into your sign every year, like clockwork, and that's called the solar return. The real solar return is on your birthday or whenever the sun is at the degree that your sun sign is. So that can vary from year to year, probably like a day or so difference. But you get the drift. It's around that time specifically. But in general, we say the solar return is when the sun goes into a particular sun person sign. And so, yeah, that's always special. But there was something, I don't know, usually I go from the beginning to the end, but let me just get into that right away because I think there's something significant here. When the month begins, well, I will go in order because I do think it will show the progression. Mars is in Virgo as the month of September begins. And the significance of this for you is that Virgo is a sign right before you. It's the 12th house. And even though this is the last house, to me, I look at the staging area for the next cycle to begin. It's a never-ending cycle, So the end of one cycle is the staging area for the beginning of the next cycle. But we can call it the house of karma and tying up loose ends and all of that. But here you have a new moon occurring on September 6th in this area. So a new beginning would have the flavor of something spiritual. If, for instance, I was going to say Virgo, Libra, you have already embarked upon a spiritual path in one way or the other, like you feel that you're having a spiritual awakening, then this may just be more exploring different practices, signing up for meditation, yoga classes, and things like that. New beginnings in the area of the spiritual, the non-material part of yourself. This might even be like a new trend of spending more time alone, which for Libra can be extremely significant as you tend to be a social butterfly. Now, if you already know your natal chart, Libra, and you know that you have your sun and maybe some other personal planets in the 12th house, that might not be the case. You might already have these tendencies. So I'm obviously, when I say these things, I'm speaking with a generalization in mind. So you also, like I said, you have Mars in Virgo, so that is in the 12th house, and that may make you very actively pursuing this hidden area of life. Maybe that even involves traveling to some retreat center and involved in activities of a more contemplative nature. I don't know. There's such a physicality with Mars that sometimes it is out of step in the 12th house, and it feels very restless because it wants to go back into its own element, the first house, the house of Aries. So anyway, that does occur on the 14th. Mars goes into your sign. And this is really what I'm getting at, is that when Mars goes into Libra, people, it's almost like growing a backbone. And I don't mean that really in a disparaging way, although it's not really true. I mean, I wouldn't say that a Libra person completely allows themselves to get walked all over at all. I don't believe that. I think it's more, I do think asserting yourself is sometimes difficult. I think sometimes you would rather make somebody else happy, feel like they have a good opinion of you, than to turn them down. And you do this at your own peril because a lot of times you may feel a sense of dissatisfaction secretly. As a matter of fact, when Mars is in the 12th house, maybe you're doing something behind the scenes that you do not want to let the cat out of the bag about. So that's always a possibility, so you can make your big debut. And I just feel that there's going to be a sense of dissatisfaction for some of you as it pertains to the workplace, and that you are going to assert yourself. The trick is not to go from one extreme to the other, that you have been somebody who has allowed yourself to be taken advantage of for years on end, and then all of a sudden you're like this, beast. I wanted to say wildebeest, is that what they call it? That you go from one extreme to the other, because that, I definitely could see that happening due to other factors that might be creating that sort of thing. Because as I stated in a recent tarot reading that I did for you, you do have, with this Aquarius energy, Jupiter being in Aquarius along with Saturn, and coming off of that blue moon all in your 5th house, that has a lot of influence in the way of like starting your own business. And you may get to the point where you're fed up with something, and it's just like, well, I'll just start my own business. And you take that anger and you make it into something constructive. But like I said, some of you may have already been preparing for this sort of thing when Mars was in the 12th house, where you were doing things and not revealing them to others, but it was really in preparation for this type of new beginning. So this makes you more assertive, this kind of, but when somebody's more assertive, the flip side of that is that they're not going to take the same crap that they did before. So they might be less cooperative. They might be more, there's more of an aggression. There's more of an attitude. What I was really hinting at is that on the 20th, we have a full moon at 28 degrees of Pisces. So it's actually very close to Aries. That would be your 7th house, the opposite house. But it's going to, there's a good chance it'll fall in your 6th house. And because of this, you may have this sense of something's got to give. I can't continue to function in this way much longer, and you might find things intolerable, and so you're willing to do whatever it takes to have a situation shake out one way versus another. And it is what it is, because it will either work in your behalf, where if you still want to be working in the same place, that you will. But on the flip side, if there's a lot of things that you are dissatisfied with, then it's like win-win. You will have that gumption to actually do that. So it all depends on other factors of like what you are willing to, how you're willing to put yourself out there. And also, by the way, a full moon in the sixth house can mean that you've done all that you can in that service to others, that there are other things that await you. You've kind of fulfilled your mission. It might even be like a promotion of sorts, a raise. Yeah, things like that. And one more thing that might go along with that is on the 10th of the month, Venus goes into Scorpio, which is a sign after you, and that is going to be in your second house of earned income. This is the house that Venus rules. So that double Venusian influence can really attract money to you. So the raise scenario certainly might be a possibility. But like I said, I just feel like this is a kind of a bigger situation than just work matters. Not to say that they may not transpire that way, but I feel like, and I don't know if it's a prelude to you having a lunar eclipse in your 8th house in November, and maybe that's going to be like clearing the decks in a lot of ways and really getting rid of a lot of emotional baggage, a lot of shadow debris, if you will, and making you a lot more psychologically flowing. Because that's one of the things about the shadow, is that it is the subconscious. It's part of the subconscious. It's not something that the person is actively dealing with. They're actually trying to shove it under the rug. And I think this is one of the things that Libra may be vulnerable in, the tendency to do things like that. And, how that plays out is that you may find that you are a little bit have too great a tendency to be the kind of person who is afraid of facing some of your more unpleasant emotions, because you would most likely judge yourself in those circumstances. It would probably, distress you to acknowledge that you feel sometimes rage or jealousy or envy, and things like that, because you want to be the kind of person who is fair, or even like prejudice. I mean, that would be a very big one for you. But I think that this is something that is really part of the collective right now. And it's being, really promoted or encouraged for people to totally, feel like, oh, they're terrible if they have some sort of prejudice, when people do, even in the form of something that doesn't involve human beings. They might have a prejudice, or, they don't like a certain color, and Libra, I could see that. It's funny, I was talking to my partner, and he was telling me, he says, I like every color. And I believe him. I think he's a little colorblind myself. But being ruled by Venus, I'm Taurus rising, I do feel like color is a very important thing for me. I really believe in color magic. I think that colors can have healing properties. They can influence us. And so a Libra person is also drawn to color in terms of their aesthetic sensibilities, but you may have biases against certain colors because maybe it reminds you of something, Or you just say, I think that looks ugly. And that's another thing. What about the bias against people who you don't find attractive? You would never admit that probably to yourself, or to others, I should say. But would you admit it to yourself that you might favor someone, at the very least, you might favor someone who is physically attractive and think better thoughts of them? These kinds of things are all forms of prejudice or bias. But it doesn't mean that we take them to the fullest extent, that we call somebody ugly, that we, that's where it gets exaggerated. And when we examine our biases, or is it biases? We're really just seeing, is there some kind of a root cause? And a lot of times there is. Sometimes it's just wired into us to be a certain way like that, to have certain things that we really just kind of repel us. And we might not know why in some cases, we just know that it does. If you're fearless about the shadow, there's nothing about yourself that you explore that you will not be able to look square in the eye, and you will still love yourself. And that's the important thing, because some people, they can look at their stuff, but then they feel great shame, revulsion, self-hatred, whatever. And that has to be looked into and eradicated. Oh my gosh, I'm in another flight pattern and I keep pausing this. It's just getting to be old. So I'm going to, since I'm almost at the end, but just, it happens sometimes. On the 22nd, this is when the sun goes into your sign. This is a power period because the sun is going into a cardinal sign. So you're a part of that power, being a cardinal sign. Libra, you're a mover and a shaker in your own right. And this is the change of the season, so it has its own, importance and things like that. It really does, you can really feel it. And I'm telling you, like in the Northern Hemisphere, it turning to autumn, it's just such an evocative thing. Living as I do in the Midwest, in Illinois, we do have distinct seasons. And as extreme as our weather is in the Chicago area, I really am grateful for having those kinds of changeability, because it gives variety to life. Certainly, it's not the easiest thing sometimes, because it does get quite extreme, but it's also very evocative. You feel it in your gut. Feel it in your bones when the fall arrives. On the 27th, Mercury goes retrograde in your sign. This is the other thing I was referring to at 25 Libra. I feel like you are really looking at your life as a whole, Libra, looking at how you carry yourself. And you may, if you are someone where that full moon, because it's very close to Aries, maybe you're dissolving a marriage or another, like a significant relationship like that. Maybe a business partnership is being dissolved. You might look at that and do some soul searching and feel like, I'm going to stop doing X, Y, and Z. Maybe you can trace some of your behavior to what happened in that situation, and you vow not to be taken for a ride ever again, because sometimes that does happen. And it can feel really bad to be taken advantage of, or to have the other party try to control everything. And you might just be taking stock of the situation. But yeah, I feel like this is a very pivotal month for you in 2021, Libra. And I hope that you resonated with this. If you would like a personal reading, I actually have deep dive readings, which are double. They're a special price for 2 hours, 2 hour readings that spend 1 hour on the natal chart itself and 1 hour on the transits. And the significance of that, besides the actual looking at your personal chart, is that the transits can definitely be totally different than what I'm saying if you are listening for your sun in Libra. So in any case, you can check out all my readings at the link below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.